I've been the night security guard at the Arlen Rose Cemetery for a little less than 3 months. It sounds weird, needing a security guard for a cemetery, but Arlen Rose is a special cemetery. It's been active since the 1700s, and it's one of the oldest cemeteries in America. At least, that's what they put on the tourist information. Some of the gravestones are quite old, and we have people that come to do rubbings or work on family trees. There are around 3,000 interred here in all, and some of them were affluent people who were buried in their finery. I'm sure there's quite a bit of money under the ground in a place like this, and we've had problems with grave robbing in the past, or so I've been told. That's where I come in. I start my shift from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I'm here 4 days a week, more if someone calls out, and it's not a bad job. I run off the occasional group of kids here to hang out and smoke. I run off the occasional looky-loos here to try and stay past sundown. I make sure the gates are locked and that nobody leaves the cemetery who's not supposed to, har har, but mostly what I do is sit on my butt and watch YouTube or Netflix on my phone. The job pays pretty well, and I only have to walk through the cemetery about 5 times a night. Once when I get there, once when the sun goes down, once when the sun comes up, and 2 other times, but I get to choose when those are. I usually walk through around 11 and 3, and between the hours and the workload, I was really excited about the job. One of the first things I noticed was the old section, the earliest part of the cemetery, where the first people were buried. There are about 500 stones here, but it's also where you see some of the weirder things that came and went throughout the ages. There are metal bars over stone casket plots. Something that the guy training me told me was to keep vampires in their graves. There's a couple of plots with cloudy glass over the burial sites, so that you could see in and make sure the person buried wasn't alive. You can't see anything through them now, but it's weird to realize that if you could clean off the glass a little, you might be staring at a skeleton right under the ground. There are lanterns on some of them that, if they were refilled, would probably work. And a lot of weird pictures and epitaphs that are written on the stone. This is also where you find the section called Bell Alley. Bell Alley is a long stretch of headstones that have a bell hanging from them. Some of them probably had ropes once upon a time, and a few of them still have very intricately woven strands that have survived somewhat to tell that they were there at all. I'd never seen anything like them before, and when I asked the officer who was training me, he said it was weird that I had never heard of burial bells. Way back in the 17 or 1800s, they would sometimes bury those that were unfortunately alive. Can you imagine? Just waking up inside a coffin and realizing that you'd never get out before you suffocated. Well, it got to be such a concern that they created burial bells. It was a bell hooked to the side of the headstone or a post coming out of the ground, and when you woke up and found yourself buried alive, you could yank on the string and ring the bell. Someone would hear it and realize that you were buried alive, and they would come get you. Well, if you were lucky, that is. If you weren't lucky, then you'd sit under the ground until you suffocated. Sometimes nobody heard the bell. Sometimes the fact that the dirt was too thick caused the rope to fail. Either way, no one would ever know that they had buried a person alive, and they were just dead down there. People come to look at those burial bells, you know. They're fascinated by them, certain people at least. We've had more than a few people come just to see this particular area so they can take pictures. And you have to look sharp to make sure that no one tries to pry one off and steal them. I asked him if he'd ever heard one of those bells ring, and when he looked at me, he had this really creepy smile on his face. These people have been buried for well over 100 years, kid. If you hear them ringing, do us a favor and don't dig 'em up. God only knows what you'll find if you broke that casket open. After a week of training, I was allowed to work on my own. The guy training me had moved to day shift, and he was in a hurry to leave the night shift behind. I asked him why. Seemed like a great shift, because there really wasn't a lot going on. And he said that was exactly the problem. He didn't want to just sit on his butt all night. He found it boring, and didn't really want to just hang out and watch tombstones get mossier every night. He showed me how to do the things that the proprietors of the graveyard wanted to see, and soon I was on my own. I had been on my own for about a week when I first heard one of the bells. Like I said, I usually do my 2 mandatory rounds at 11 and 3. I was walking through the cemetery, listening for people, trying not to give myself away if there was somebody skulking around out there. And that's when I heard it. It wasn't loud, just the low tinkle of a bell. And I looked around to see if somebody or something was messing with me. I was in the old section, and nobody much bothers to decorate these grave sites anymore. They were interested only in them for their historical value, not because anybody remembers the people here. I kept moving, kept listening for the sound, and that's when I came to Bell Alley. I was in the middle of the row, a Miss Melinda Abernathy, who had died before my great-great-grandmother had even sailed to this country from Ireland. The bell on her gravestone was jingling merrily, as if someone underground was really wailing on the cord. The problem was that Melinda didn't have a cord attached to her bell. Most of them didn't. Time and weather had rotted them away, but her bell was still ringing, all on its own. I took a swallow and heard my throat click as I tried to make my neck hair stand down. I decided that the wind must be pushing it, which was hard to get to stick once I noticed that there really wasn't any wind. I moved away, continued my round as I tried to ignore the bell. It really creeped me out for the rest of the night. The bells didn't ring every night. Sometimes they took a couple of nights off. Sometimes I would hear 1 or 2 every night for 2 or 3 nights, and then nothing for a week. But I heard them again as I settled into the job. It was never anything urgent. There were never anyone really pulling on the bell rope to let me know they needed to come out right now. It was more like the wind pushing the bells and making them ring. It was weird, but not unexplainable. Not until about 3 nights ago, at least. I'd been hearing something all night, some kind of metallic noise that I'd heard over the headphones that I'd been using to watch Star Trek for about the 100th time. I'd taken one of the earbuds out and listened, and of course, I could hear the bells clear across the cemetery. There was no mistaking what it was. The bells they have are very distinct, and it's not like it could be traffic noises or someone's window shutter banging against the house. I decided to get up and see what was going on. There wasn't any wind that night, and I'd begun to suspect that it might be kids playing a prank. They would think it was funny to start ringing bells and then move off a little bit so they could laugh when I arrived, all covered in sweat and panting. The bells had been going off for a couple of days, but it had never been quite this loud. I grabbed my flashlight, grabbed my phone, and headed out for the old part of the cemetery. If it was kids playing tricks, then I was going to call the police before I ran them towards the gate, and hopefully the cops would do the rest. I was tired of hearing those damn eerie bells as they rang every night, and was ready for whoever was behind it to get their comeuppance. I was staying low as I came around a line of chunky-looking rock mausoleums. The mausoleums would allow me to sneak up on whoever was ringing those bells and would allow for surprise as I caught them. I would come out about the middle of Bell Alley, and I could call the cops before I surprised them. In my mind, I could see the group of kids as they laughed to themselves about how they were going to scare the old security guard that worked here, not expecting somebody who could still run and raise his voice to them. I could already hear them jumping and shouting with surprise as they took off, my flashlight beam falling onto a small collection of beer cans, or maybe even the remains of someone's pipe. I peered around the side of one, the row of graves in sight, but I was surprised to find that no one but myself was skulking around the graveyard. What I did see was all the bells on the graves on that row, ringing violently. They were swaying to and fro, as if someone was really trapped under the ground and wanted to get out. There was no wind that night, but I felt a cold chill run through me nonetheless. They were all ringing simultaneously, some of them shaking the metal struts that held them to the stone placards. I leaned against the mausoleum, not daring to look away, and as my wristwatch informed me that it had just struck midnight, all of them suddenly stopped. The silence was deafening, and it took me a few minutes to get my feet back under me so I could leave. I didn't go out on another round that night. And when my relief got there at 6 o'clock, I told him that everything was fine and headed home. I gotta go back tomorrow. My 2 days off thankfully gave me some time to think about it. But I'm not sure I can go back. It seems like now I can hear those ringing bells everywhere. They're never far from my mind. I don't know what to do, but I suddenly wonder who it is ringing those bells and why they want out so badly. As my training officer told me, some secrets are better left underground, though.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel, so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button, maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.